Hi folks, and welcome to the brand new Aches and Games Monthly. Well, a slightly tweaked version of our regular check-in between two slightly older British friends, talking life, gaming, and basically whatever other nonsense comes to mind. We've got a top show for you this month, covering our festive antics, giving our thoughts on what we've been playing, including December's Game of the Month, which was Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, and chatting about our highlights from the Game Awards. Before we dive in, though, a quick reminder that in addition to these monthly shows, which are now going to focus on what we've been doing exclusively this month, you'll also find the occasional special episode hitting your feed around 4 to 6 times a year. And what do you know? The first of these specials, which ran through each of our favourite games of the month, games of the year of 2024, hit the podcast feed just a few days ago. So if you've not listened already, please check that one out and let us know what you think. You can find us on all good socials at Aches and Games, on our Facebook page, or email us at achesandgamespod@gmail.com. I'm Giles Nicholson, Giles Went West on most things, including Xbox Live and PlayStation Network. And joining me, as always, is my good friend James Hopes. Hi James, Happy New Year!
Yeah, Happy New Year to you, Giles. It feels like a long time since we last did an episode together, so it's nice to see your pretty face again after all this time. I've made some notes for this one, and one of the things we're going to talk about was obviously Christmas, because it's been a big month for that one. But before we go into that bit, obviously you can find me on social media at You Have to Laugh with the number 2. You can find me on PlayStation Network with James Boy 1978. I posted it on our Facebook page today, my summary of the year from PlayStation, so you've got my username on there in case you want to find me. I'm on Xbox as James Boy 78, and then I think it's 9352 or something similar to that one, but I can never quite remember. And Joshua's nicked my old account, so that's my newish account. And obviously I look after the Facebook page and TikTok, love a bit of TikTok, and also the website, www.achesandgames.co.uk. So that is me. Generally, Giles, do you want to say some bits about what you've done in the last month to start us all off?
Oh yeah, let's mix it up. I'll start. Excellent. Well, my Christmas was a little bit, or my run into Christmas was a bit disrupted, as you will know, James, because sadly I got a bit of a bug, which meant I missed James's Christmas party, everybody. So that was very sad. Didn't even get to see the house, which we've long looked forward to seeing all the hard work you guys have been doing. So hopefully we'll get round soon. But in amongst the coughing, I did get to a few things. So we got to the Royal Albert Hall for a fun carol concert. So apologies to anyone else who's in the Royal Albert Hall in the early December. You've probably now got the same bug I had. Didn't intend to spread it around. We also went to a Paul Heaton gig. Any fans of the Beautiful South or what were they called? Happy Hour, the House Martins.
Yeah.
All his new stuff. That was really fun. We were probably the youngest people there, which was always quite nice. Not a very common experience in life anymore. But yes, it was mostly men and women of a certain age, sort of shuffling around from foot to foot, enjoying songs from our youth. And then I recovered mostly in time for Christmas. So I spent a lovely Christmas with my sisters and with the family, and then at H's mum and dad, with lots of good food and laziness. So a pretty full Christmas period, despite the fact that for most of it I was coughing and spluttering and trying to keep away from people. How about you, James?
Yeah, according to my notes, a lot of my December was spent engaged in Christmas panties. But when you reread it, it's actually Christmas parties, which I had quite a few of in December. So it's quite a few work ones. I think there was 3 work ones, and I went to a 5-a-side football one in Wokingham with our friend Craig and lots of other people that I play football with on a Wednesday night. It's called Fat Dads Football because we're all fat and we're all dads, although some of us aren't dads and some of us aren't fat. But I'm fat and a dad, so I'm a perfect candidate. We went out for a curry just to celebrate the fact that we're fat. Even fatter after the curry night, 'cause it's very nice. So that was good. The work ones were all good. One was quite intense, and I didn't get home till 5 a.m, but the other 2 were a bit more low-key, so all very pleasant. And as Joel alluded to earlier, I also had our own house Christmas pie, which is very pleasant. Had a few people around, had some good times, a few drinks. Lots of people impressed with the new look of our house after all the building works, and everyone wanted a little tour of my mum's bit, so my mum had to let people into a new annex to show people around, but they weren't allowed into the bedroom, quite rightly. So they only seen the downstairs. But the upstairs is also lovely, just in case you're wondering. So that was really good. And we also very recently saw the Windsor illuminated thingy. So that was in Windsor Great Park with lots of funky lights and stuff. And one of the best parts was there's water in Windsor Great Park, and they had lots of fountains going off in time with the music, with different colour lights coming out of them, and that was really good. And that's on my own Facebook account, actually, and on Instagram. So if you know me in real life, have a look at Facebook and you'll see some fun stuff of the excellent time we had there. Joshua really enjoyed it. We bought some hot chocolates when we got there, which were ludicrously expensive. We had 2 Baileys hot chocolates for £7 each and 1 normal hot chocolate for £5. And Joshua thought it was too hot and then didn't like it afterwards because it was too hot. Even when it cooled down, it's still too hot. So we had to drink that one as well. So £19 on hot chocolates for the first 2 minutes wasn't great. But fortunately, he grew from there and decided that £5.45 for a small cone of chips was too much to afford as well. So we didn't have to have the chips. So he's learning fast. But we did have a KFC later on to make up for it. So that was good. Obviously, Christmas Day itself, had the family around. So obviously, my mum lives next door to us with an interior door. So she popped around with some of her chairs to make up the numbers around a table. And Sarah's mum and sister, sister's partner, and uncle all came around as well. So there was a total of 8 of us in the end. Me and Sarah cooked all the food, went quite well. But interestingly, I don't know if you've ever experienced this before, Giles, when you cook a Christmas turkey and you have a turkey crown wrapped in bacon, the turkey never stops being pink. So you kind of think you're going to poison everyone and they're all going to die horribly. But in reality, it's just the colour of the bacon leaching into the flesh of the turkey. So it's pink halfway down and then white at the bottom. So we gave it like an extra 15 minutes thinking, why they're not going to stop being pink? And it never stopped being pink, but no one died. So I'm here to tell the tale that if you have a pink turkey, it's fine. As long as it's not obviously dripping blood and freezing cold, in which case it's a very different scenario. Your Christmas Day, right?
Yeah, oh, that sounds really stressful. I can fully imagine it. And as someone who is colorblind, cooking meat can be quite tricky because I'm very much reliant on a meat thermometer because the difference between a sort of pinkish brown and a brownish pink are completely completely the same for me. Yeah, it was lovely. I mean, we got really spoiled. We got catered for at my sister's and then at Hannah's mum and dad's. So yeah, we didn't do the whole 2 Christmas meals thing, but across a week we just got fed and looked after, and got most of our attempts to help batted away. So
Nice.
very lazy, but we've both had this lurgy, so it's actually been really nice. We've had a chance to recuperate mostly, although there's some lingering coughs going on as you mentioned before we recorded. Good stuff. Have you watched anything fun? Or I think I asked if you read anything fun last month, and we both looked completely blank. Let's go with what.
No, I hadn't quite finished my exciting Christmas stories yet.
Sorry. Carry on.
Blimey, trying to rush me along. How rude. We finished the porch. The porch was finished literally 2 days before Christmas, so that was good. So we now have the porch roofed and tiled. We've been waiting for months for that one, so that was all finally done. And also on Christmas Day, I had some spectacular indoor fireworks. I don't know if you ever had indoor fireworks as a child, but they've not improved at all in the last 30/40 years. So it's still bits that sparkle a little bit and then die off. There's like the thing you stick in a birthday cake that spits some flames out the top, which is quite fun. And there's also ones called something snake, and it starts off as a little thing and then sort of a brown black turd-like substance emits from it, making a curl of turd around the plate. So that's really fascinating. I'll pop it on our social later on so you can see quite how exciting the turd-based indoor fireworks were. But it's not something that I'll probably buy again in the future, but it did get the family celebrating the awesomeness of the indoor fireworks around the table. And it did knacker one of our baking trays, unfortunately. You have to put it on a non-flammable surface, but it doesn't tell you that the non-flammable surface will die afterwards because it's covered in burnt goo. So there we go. Right. That's my last 2 bits. In terms of TV, Giles, not a lot, bizarrely. So on Christmas Day, I watched no TV at all. Sarah's uncle loves his Christmas omnibuses, so he watched the Emmerdale Christmas special and the Coronation Street Christmas special. So we spent an hour and a half watching that. We did watch the DVD of Joshua's play Porridge, which we talked about last month. So we spent an hour and a bit of Christmas Day watching Joshua perform in Porridge, which again wasn't the Ronnie Barker prison-based sketch program. It was to do with sort of fairy tales. And Joshua was Simple Simon, so he was involved in finding a cow and doing other things, and then ended up with a suitcase full of cash, which is very pleasant. So we kind of enjoyed that one. In terms of other TV, just the usual stuff, really. So we've been watching Below Deck, as always. The fascinating of relationships going on in there, and just the normal odds and sods of criminal stuff, drama. 24 Hours in Police Custody, we watched a couple of. We always love 24 Hours in Police Custody. Despite our jobs, we still find it quite fascinating that people get interviewed and go to jail, so that's quite fun. So that's about it, really. Not much TV, quite a bit of gameplay, loads of Christmas parties, and generally knackered after the festive period, as always.
Cool. The porridge thing sounds really fun. I might, if it's not weird, watch that at some point. That sounds good. So we finished Masters of the Air. I think I mentioned last month that we'd run out of our free trial on Apple TV, and we were a couple of episodes short. But thank Apple TV for offering these free trials almost, everywhere through various different companies, and they seem to be fairly light on letting you just keep subscribing for a free month and then cancelling, which is nice. So we finished that off, which was brilliant. A sort of spiritual sequel to Band of Brothers in the Pacific, based around the American bombers in the World War II. So that was really good, and obviously not fun subject matter, and some pretty harrowing stuff, but really, really good. Recommend it. Bit more fun, also harrowing though, because featuring Feathers McGraw, is it? We watched the Wallace and Gromit Christmas special, which was excellent, and the Gavin and Stacey one as well, which was also excellent. I think we were a bit unsure coming into the finale, but all was right in the end. You don't look very impressed, James. Are you not a fan?
No. Me and Sarah have never watched Gavin and Stacey. I think we saw one episode and enjoyed it years ago, but never actually watched it. So we didn't want to watch a Christmas special in case it ruined it. So we're going to have to watch the whole of Gavin and Stacey from scratch at some stage in the new year, whenever we find the time. So yeah, something to look forward to, but not something we watched on the day.
Yeah, all on iPlayer if you're in the UK listening, and mostly sort of half-hour, 25-minute episodes. So I don't know about you, I'm always looking for a sort of shorter show to kind of fit in amongst everything else in life. And yeah, I'd recommend it. It'd be good. See what you think. Last thing, we're watching Strike, the Ink Black Heart, which is quite interesting. I've enjoyed the previous Strikes, written by, let's call them Robert Galbraith, because it's less problematic than the original genuine author, and the J.K. Rowling stories, if you're not aware, anyone listening, and they are based around a private investigator, Cormoran Strike. They're always quite kind of dark and grisly, usually without showing too much. I think the books are actually a bit more, go into a lot more detail about the murders and stuff. But this one's quite interesting because it's kind of focused on online fandom, which feels like it overlaps quite strongly with gaming, and sometimes people who get a bit, well, more than a bit carried away in terms of thinking that they have some kind of stake in the game that they play, or in this case, the sort of series that these friends have created. And it's really interesting. We've got one episode to go, so enjoying it so far. It's just particularly interesting because Hannah's read the books, or this book in particular, quite recently, and they've managed to condense a very long book into 4 episodes. So it has also explained to both of us why sometimes we have to sort of pause and ask each other what the hell was going on. But that's been fun too. So yeah, some light-hearted stuff with Wallace and Gromit, some kind of emotional and fun stuff, mostly with Gavin and Stacey, and some traumatic misery, just like we like, as we've talked about on the podcast many times. That is our month.
Just a tiny little segue back from films and TV programs. We also went to Basildon Park recently. We always go there. It's our local National Trust place, and we always go there at Christmas because they have, each room is decorated with a different grand Christmas tree, as it would have been in the olden days. But this year it was a bit special because it was focused on Basildon Park being used as a movie/TV series set over the years for different thingies. So over the years, you had Pride and Prejudice and bits of Bridgerton and the Downton Abbey Christmas special and the Duchess and other bits and pieces were all filmed in part at Basildon Park. So that was fun wandering on there as well. So that was a nice day out, and just thought that kind of fitted in with the TV program type theme. And each room this year was decorated with clues for a different movie, and you had to guess each room movie theme. So yeah, there's some interesting ones in there, like Gremlins. That was virtually impossible to guess that one. And Christmas Carol was in there as well, with a cane and a lamppost. That's how you meant to guess it's Christmas Carol. And some other bits and pieces as well. So that was good fun for a nice day out. So I'd always recommend that at Christmas, either if you've got time this year before it closes, or this time next year, because it's on every year in every National Trust property that has rooms and space for Christmas trees. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, James. Yeah, I haven't been to Basildon Park for ages. That's a great shout. I will get myself over. Right, so quick reminder, these monthly episodes are going to be slightly shorter these days, and we're talking about what we've been doing, what we've been watching, and obviously what we've been playing, including our game of the month. So on to that. James, what have you... I've just noticed in my notes, GN to add description. That could be challenging, couldn't it?
Yeah.
So shall I try and describe Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, or do you want to have a go? Who's gonna fumble their way through these next 2 minutes?
You'd hope that most people knew a little bit about Indiana Jones. It's quite a popular film franchise from the olden days. But had some recent ones as well, which weren't quite as good, if you like that kind of thing. So Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, which is definitely not the Giant Circle, as I keep getting it wrong over the times, is a whole new one. So it's not based on the movie per se. It's set between the two original Indiana Jones films. Graphically, it has the original Harrison Ford, how he looked back in the olden days, rather than how he looks now. But I believe there's a voice actor to voice how he sounded back then as well, which is quite accurate, quite good. And it's the authentic costume, authentic real bits as well. And the intro to it is an authentic bit from one of the original films, which makes it fascinating and ties it back in. And pretty much Indiana Jones goes out, having had his museum or university where he works sort of robbed by a giant type character who nicks something from him, an artifact from the past, and Indy goes around the world to different locations trying to work out why it's been nicked, who it's involved with, and therefore how it all ties together. And somewhere along the line, you find out it all ties into some kind of giant circle, great circle, not giant circle, blimey, great circle. So if you draw a circle on a map of the world, it brings some locations together which have exciting relevance to the game. And it's by Machine Games and obviously from Lucasfilms Games Studio 2.
Amazing, thank you, James. You've saved that section. A wonderful description. You mentioned there are giants in it. Maybe that's why you keep saying the giant circle.
Yeah, maybe.
Because they do feature intermittently throughout the story. What did you think so far? How much have you played?
So this is one we've chosen to do together, me and Sarah. Every now and again we play a game together when we get bored of watching TV and arguing about other things and cooking food. So this is a game we've chosen. The last one we did together was Uncharted and The Last of Us. So this is the first one we played together properly since then, which is nice. So we're taking it slowly. We're doing it over a few evenings. So we've spent probably the last week and a bit. We've done a couple of hours in there. So we're probably up to about 5 hours so far, maybe. And certainly early impressions are really good. There's a lot of worries in the original previews that the graphics were poor, but I thought the graphics were really quite good. I thought they, not film quality, but you certainly could look at them briefly without wearing your glass and be convinced it was a proper film. There was a decent amount of goodness. Like we said, the story is quite interesting and quite big. So you do go around the world in it, which is quite fascinating. So there's lots of different types of locations. Bit of action. So the action is interesting. You do have a gun, but we certainly spent most of our time beating up people with things you find lying around, which is probably one of the more fascinating parts of the game. So you can pick up like a dustpan and brush, you can pick up some stake or a baseball bat and just whack people around the back of the head with it. I even managed to get them to whack someone between the legs with one of them, which I thought was quite fun. I couldn't recreate it for a few times afterwards, but when that happened, that was generally quite fun. And it's one of those kind of games, so similar to Uncharted and Plague Tale Requiem, whereby the guards kind of see you and you get a sort of a monitor filling up, and if they see you for the whole time, then they come and get you. But if they don't see you and you hide for a certain amount of time, they forget they've seen you and move on with their lives, which I always find bizarre. Not the best.
Sorry, Dave. I love they've got some really good dialogue around this with someone sort of going, "Oh, must be nothing," and just sort of wandering off, and you just think, maybe their recruitment policy for their guards needs to be tightened up a little bit. Oh, I thought I saw someone down there. Probably nothing. I'm just going to get on with my day. Sorry,
silly me. No, so the AI for those bits isn't amazing because you can get quite close to creeping up behind someone with a broom before they even begin to notice you're there. And even then, if you just run away for a few seconds, they forget you're there and lose interest completely. So it's quite easy to wander through and smack a load of people over the head in a few seconds and not really get killed quite easily. But the story's good, the graphics good, the voice acting's good. Everything's good about it, really. Lots of side quests, which I quite like side quests. You can whip through the main storyline if you want to, or you can take on all the side quests like you see a poster of a missing cat and you go up on a roof and take a photo of the missing cat to solve that particular one. And there's also a weird bit where you get a camera once you buy it from like a second-hand type shop, and you can go around taking photographs of special points, and you get bonus credits for doing that. And you can spend the credits on different things as the game goes by. So really good first impressions, very much into it. We haven't gone around the world yet. We've only gone to the first place, but that's been really interesting so far. Obviously got some religious context to it, which is fun. Obviously spent a bit of time in the Vatican, knocking around with priests and nuns and that lot. So that's quite interesting in itself. And yeah, really enjoyed it so far. I think you enjoyed it too, Giles, from what I believe from previous discussions.
Yes, yes. If anyone's not listened to our Games of the Year episode, it may feature. Yeah, no, I've loved it. I've really enjoyed my time with it. It sounds like I'm a bit further on than you. I've
Yep.
been mainlining indie, although I also took my time. I think it's interesting you said about the side quests. I think it's both sort of a strength and a potential weakness of the game in terms of, rather than being a sort of single kind of linear narrative drama, essentially, which would keep the momentum of the game up and would help with the pacing sometimes. The fact that you can go off and do these things and that they're kind of interesting side quests rather than some of the stuff that in some of the more recent Assassin's Creeds, go and collect 20,000 feathers and you just kind of think, oh, this is just like work, really. Although I don't collect feathers at work, so that's not maybe the best analogy. But yeah, you've got these really good side quests that sort of you feel are worthwhile, and the kind of rewards, whether that's an interesting story or a kind of digital thing that you can collect. The side quests feel worthwhile. Yeah, I thought the same in terms of the graphically and also sort of audio. It really feels like the films. I thought there's this lovely little quite subtle score going on in the background, sometimes swells up to a proper noticeable soundtrack where you think, oh yeah, this is a sort of big action set piece, or this is a key part in the story. But a lot of the time it's just got that kind of incidental, something weird's going on around here sort of music that you find in the films. I kind of love the fact, although it is, I think, objectively a problem for the game in terms of the stupidity of the guards, it's also very much on brand for the films. It's like in Star Wars as well, where the stormtroopers could be like 3 yards away from you and kind of shoot all around you and trip over something, and that's kind of on point for these stories. So I kind of think that whether deliberate or not, that kind of helps the game, this sort of sense of ridiculousness of things going on. I don't know if you've got any good achievements from your sort of hilarious weapons, but there's a few in there if you do things. I was eating an apple in the game for some health, and I was mid apple, and a guard sort of came around the corner, and I think by mistake I just pressed the button and threw an apple at his head. And sorry to spoil an achievement, but that's the sort of thing that sometimes kind of pops an achievement, and you think, okay, they were having fun making this game as much as I was playing. But yeah, very puzzle heavy, which surprised me, and I've really enjoyed the puzzles. So some sort of multi-stage puzzles involving in the Vatican. There's a really good one around the fountain. There's some quite good ones around dates, again around that area. There's some later on in the next area after the Vatican, which I won't spoil for you. There's some, again, really good puzzling involving light and things like that. And it just feels like an Indiana Jones film. It feels like playing an Indiana Jones adventure, which is, I'm sure, exactly what they were going for. I mentioned the open world versus tighter sort of gameplay sections. I think in some areas I found it a little bit sort of directionless and not quite knowing what I should do next, and maybe that's kind of farting around with side missions when I should just be ploughing ahead at that point. But that also changes. It does sort of have sections of the game where it's a bit more sort of straightforward. So yeah, it's I'm loving it. I think first person works. I'd almost like to play this in VR. I think it would be quite fun. Having played a lot of VR recently, I wonder if that's an option in the future. But yeah, big fan. Enjoyed it. Enjoyed it a lot. as you might hear if you listen to our Games of the Year 2024.
Yeah, you're right though.
Anything else, please?
No, I was going to say in terms of side quests, they can get a little bit confusing. I found when playing with Sarah, in that you sort of pick up a side quest, and then your marker of where you're going to changes to that side quest without you completely realizing it sometimes. So you're off doing what you think is the main story, and it's actually a side quest that you've not realized you've gone on to the side quest. So you waste a bit of time doing the side quest and then completely forgetting or missing what the main story was. And then by the time you go back to the main story, you've kind of forgotten where you were before, and then you find another side quest and go off somewhere else. So it can get a little bit confusing. But like Joel said, good sense of humour in it, and the puzzles are really good. Even if some of them are quite basic, you just sort of pick up a bust and put it on a pressure plate to activate something. But some of them are a bit more complicated. I think there was a statue or a figure of something, and you had to get the right number in each of the places based on where the foot was and where the side was, based on things you found elsewhere in the bit. So really good, really enjoyable, great game. We'll definitely play it through to the finish, as when me and Sarah both have availability, so it could take a little while. But hopefully we'll get it done in January and be able to talk about how awesome it was in next month's episode. So yeah, that was our big one for the month for both of us, I think.
Sounds good. I'm looking at the running order, and you've been playing a lot of different games, James. So do you wanna pick out any highlights or take us through what you've been playing?
I'm glad you mentioned that because I forgot to write any of them down on my notes. I've been able to record on my phone each month. I can't see our phone-based notes, so I just completely blag it every month. So one of them was, for example, I played a little bit the other day of Little Nightmares. So I got back into that one, Little Nightmares 2, should I say? Not Little Nightmares 1, because that's a very different game. I've played it a bit every month for the last 2 or 3 months since sort of Halloween type time when I was trying to look for scary type games. And it is very much a scary, deep, dark type game. So I'm sure I've said this before somewhere, but you're a small boy and you walk through levels trying to escape rooms and generally escape something, but you're not quite sure, like some other games, what you're escaping from. And it's very dark. Sometimes you find lots of children who have got clay heads instead of real heads, and they attack you and try and eat you if they see you. So you have to whack them over the clay head with like a pole and break their clay head in half, and then they die, which is obviously quite a normal thing in the game and obviously perfectly not weird at all. Sometimes you meet other small children that are like locked in rooms or found in basements or in dark places, and then you take them with you and then they help you get through different sections. So that's quite interesting, but again, it feels quite miserable and weird in some ways, but in a fun way. And I think we've mentioned before in a previous episode, there's a school level, which is sort of level 2 out of the 3-level series, and there's a teacher in there that if she sees you, her neck extends bizarre amounts and she chases after you around corridors or through pipes or through air vents, and her neck just gets longer and longer and longer. There's seemingly no end to the length of this lady's neck. So it's like a middle-aged Latin teacher, I would say, for some reason. And whenever she sees you, she just really scares the crap out of you with her neck that disappears, and however far you run away, her neck seems to follow you. So really disturbing, really interesting. Again, some really good puzzles in there that you've got to try and solve. Like one puzzle I did a few days ago, you had to throw a glass bottle with a brain in it onto the floor from a shelf so you could then pick up the brain and throw it against a button. So I spent a long time trying to work out how to get the button hit, and obviously you throw the brain at it. What else would you do to get through a doorway as opposed to throw a mutilated brain at a button? So fascinating
You
game.
used your brain. You used your brain.
Yeah, I did use my brain. It just took a long time. So yeah, really good game. I'm nowhere near finishing yet, although I've just finished the school section, which is section 2. So I think I'm on the final section about now. So I played a fair bit of that in December. Really good game. And I also picked up Sackboy just for a few hours, just for a bit of fun. I've not played Sackboy for months. I played it with Josh a few months ago. He enjoyed it, but he wasn't that into it. So I thought I'd give it a go on my own, because I looked through my library a few days ago and thought, I haven't played that for a little while. And again, for those who have not played Sackboy, you're a boy who's in the form of a sack, hence the name of the game. And it's kind of platformery-ish. You sort of run around and you hit things, you hit boxes and you get those sort of bubbles of stuff out of them, and you collect stuff and you jump between platforms and you stand on things that you can control using the balance of your joypad, which I found quite fun. So it's like a space platform that you control with your joypad. Good fun. So again, not the most complicated of games, not the most groundbreaking of games, but really interesting, fun little adventure in the form of a sack. And you can upgrade your sack to different colours. So I currently have a blue sack in the form of a boy. So
you might want to see a doctor about that, James. Excellent. next one from me this month. The next big game, or the other game I've played a fair bit of, because I completed it because it was leaving Game Pass, and I leave things to the last minute. It was The Quarry, because we had played, or I had played Until Dawn as
Yep.
part of a spooky season, and really enjoyed it. And The Quarry was basically kind of the same game, from the same team. This time it was a group of kind of camp counselors, that is, American summer camp, as opposed to, let's not get, I'll just get myself in trouble. But it's not what I thought it was as I was saying it out loud. It's a kind of less horny version of Until Dawn, in that it's really the sort of classic 80s slasher with everyone, all the young people like up for some kind of sex together. This is they're a bit more. There's still some of that, to be fair, but this is a little bit more kind of group of friends in the woods. Some really great camera shots. It's very stylish. It looks great, but there's less interaction than Until Dawn. Very much an interactive movie, this one. David Arquette was in it, which was quite
Nice.
fun. Fans of Scream would recognise Agent Dewey, no, Sergeant Dewey, Officer Dewey, whatever he was. He was Dewey, one way or another. I didn't recognise anyone else, although weirdly, one of the characters turns out to be Macaulay Culkin's real life wife, which I thought was a good bit of trivia. There's some sort of strangers with mysterious motivations. There's a in between chapters character talking to the camera, very much like Until Dawn, if you've played that, or the what are they called? There's a series, isn't there? I just realised I don't. Dark
Yes.
Anthology or something like
Yes.
that.
Yes.
So they're kind of all similar games, to be honest. But this one was really fun. It looks good. There were some kind of weird little musical bits which didn't really fit. I feel like it was trying to be a bit Alan Wake in that respect. Alan Wake, I think, made really good use of the music at the end of each episode. This sometimes a piece of music would just sort of randomly play in the middle of a scene, and it didn't feel like it quite nailed what they were going for. But it was a short, fun, interactive experience. Group of teens getting kind of terrorized by all kinds of things, and a few good jump scares. But I wouldn't recommend paying too much money for it, but certainly as a part of the subscription, it was a fun distraction from indie. So that was my other big one. Any more from you, James? I know you've got a long list. I can give you some names if you need them.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, made by the same people as Man of Medan, wasn't it? Which is one of the first
Yes,
games we talked about on the podcast a long time ago, where we were
that's
on
the
a
one.
sort of a radioactive boat from the 40s. So all very similar. I always find it fascinating when I see massive games of those kind of ones, and that the actors always look identical to the people doing the voicing. So I always find it fun afterwards to look up on Google who the voice actors are, and you can see they look exactly like their characters on the show. Fascinating insight there. A few different games that Joshua's had recently that I've been playing with him. So I mentioned some of those as well. Obviously, he wanted some things for Christmas and got some things from various parties, one of which was Forza Horizon 5. So he used to love Forza Horizon 4 until it disappeared from Game Pass. But fortunately, Forza Horizon 5 came on Game Pass. So it looked like a good gift, but in reality, it was free, which was a bonus. My favourite type of Christmas presents, the ones you don't have to pay any money for. And whereas Forza Horizon 4 was set in the UK, Forza Horizon 5, try saying that 4 times, is set in Mexico. So it has sort of South American type DJs and very different scenery. But the game itself is pretty similar. You collect cars and you solve quests and you go on roads and win races. So he's been loving that one. I've been playing that with him as well, which has been good fun. And obviously, he's continued to play Fortnite with me over Christmas. There's been some good festive content on there in the Winterfests, which came a few days before Christmas. So we had sort of a Santa Snoop Dogg in a full Santa outfit as one of the characters over Christmas. And each day in the Winterfest, you get to pick a present from the lodge on there. So you get a little free gift, including some skins over Christmas. So if you don't fancy paying for skins, you can get some at Christmas time. So if you want to go into Fortnite in a moment and go on the Winterfest part, you can get some free bits and pieces. If you want to look less like an original character, that's been really good. They always change the scenery at Christmas. So the current season is all about sort of Japanese culture. But for the Winterfest part, There's lots of snow and lots of Santa parts. And Mariah Carey jumped out of a big frozen ice cube as well at some stage to launch the Winterfest season. So that was that was really good fun. So we've enjoyed all that one, and that's got him into Mariah Carey, although he keeps calling her Maria. And it's not called Maria, it's called Mariah. And you can't get into his head, it's Mariah Carey. But there we go as well. And one more game he got was Star Wars Outlaws. So he's played both Star Wars games in the past, which was Jedi Fallen Order and the other one, which I temporarily forgotten the name of. But the new one, Star Wars Outlaws, has a new character called Kay Vess. Bizarrely, there's lots of talk when the game came out that she wasn't attractive enough to be a main character in a game, because obviously it shows some of the people who play video games are still a bit weird. Not us. I mean, Giles obviously just there for the content rather than the looks of the characters. But yeah, Kay Vess is she lives in a place with not much hope and not much future, and she's sort of turned to a criminal lifestyle. So she's done some bad things, and eventually she upsets the wrong people and has to leave her hometown to go off in search of outlaw success somewhere else. So she gets help from the person who runs the tavern and gets accepted into a crew who are going off to do a big heist at a mansion. So she goes off in a vehicle and gets involved in that one. And that's as far as we've got so far. But it's really good. Again, graphically good. Star Wars is always a good topic. So lots of spacey type stuff, lots of flying around, lots of speed races, lots of laser beams, lots of sticks and stuff. So really good game, good fun. Josh is really enjoying it. And it's also gotten back into Jedi Fallen Order, which he didn't finish before. But now he's seen the new one, he's got back into the old one as well. So a bit of a 2-for-1 in that respect. So I think those are the only games I played this month, unless Charles reminds me of one other.
Yes, well, Legend of Santa was the other that you've got on your notes, which I think you'll be gutted if you didn't mention. So it looked so weird. James shared pictures of this with me and Scotty on a WhatsApp chat. What the hell was this about, James?
Yeah, it's also on our Facebook page. Fascinating game. Obviously, it's the Legend of Santa, so it's made to sound a bit like the Legend of Zelda, but it's not based on Legend of Zelda. It's based on very much sort of other Nintendo games which are available. So you jump around. It's very much a old school 80s, 90s type platformer. You jump up and down like in Super Mario, for example. You hit your head on certain things to make cookies appear rather than coins or other things. You jump on top of things to kill them, like you jump on top of penguins, and you get through the levels. So I think there's 3 or 4 different levels, but there's different sections in each one, and you gradually work your way through, like you would do a normal platformer, to get to the right-hand side of the screen. Very much a side scroller, very much festive, very much Santa jumping around, and you've gradually got to save Christmas by saving Santa, saving Rudolph, and various other bits and pieces. So it's really straightforward, nothing much to it, but good quality game. Very similar to, like I said, Nintendo quality games from the past, and really enjoyed playing it. So I put a few hours into that one just on the build up to Christmas. Me and Josh will play together. Good fun. So I'd recommend it to anyone who is feeling a bit nostalgic about Christmas, given it was so long ago. So if you want to give it a go, it was only like £1.99 or £2, and it's on every major platform, including Switch, PC, Xbox, and PlayStation, I believe. So yeah, good fun. Give it a go.
Oh, cool. Yeah, we were berating, weren't we, in December's episode, that there weren't really any kind of Christmas or wintry games. So that was that sounds like it hit the spot. And yeah, Star Wars Outlaws I really want to play. So, but I've got Jedi Survivor, which I think is the second one, still to go. You were looking for the word, and I was like, what is that second one called? There we go. Yeah, the only other thing I wanted to call out really, one other video game, one other game, was Moss on Quest VR. So there's this really cute platformer which I'm really enjoying. Just again, I mentioned last month that my experience with Quest VR is really got me back into the sort of sense of joy of using that different medium. In Moss, you have this sort of third person, slightly strange detached perspective. The main character is Quill, is a little mouse, and you are kind of sat still as Quill kind of runs in and out of these little scenes that you're sat in front of, almost like a diorama, a sort of storybook type world. So the way it gets around VR's sort of limitations, obviously, you don't want to be moving. This is a sedentary game. You can sit there playing it. You control Quill, the character, around you, but he or she she, I think, moves from scene to scene. Let's go with they. Moves from scene to scene in front of you, and it's just so endearing. The world is really brilliant. It's got that sort of fantasy storybook, Princess Bride type feel about it. Really enjoying that game. Just not that far through it, so that's been my other gaming experience, as well as obviously all the sort of Christmas games that we've been playing in real life. But I'll maybe save those ones for the runtime. Awesome. Sounds like a busy month for both of us. We got some gaming in there. I suppose that's what happens when you get some time off, and especially getting to share it with the family. Sounds like it was a fun month, James.
Yeah, apart from working Boxing Day on the 27th, so couldn't really drink or go to bed late on Christmas Day because I was at 6 o'clock start on Boxing Day, so that kind of ruined it a bit. But I'm in the middle of a few days off at the moment, so I'm kind of catching up on stuff I would have nice to have done at the time. All good.
Nice. Excellent. Well, slightly different format, as we've mentioned. There's no main topic of this month, so we're rattling towards the end of what we promised you was a shorter episode, and we're going to deliver. In terms of news bites, James is sort of still not entirely confident about that, but Taskmaster's in 5 minutes, so let's see how we go. In terms of news bites, thankfully, or rather unfortunately, but thankfully for the running time, in terms of what's coming to the subscription services, we're recording this before PlayStation Plus have announced their new games, and Game Pass also have not announced very much for this month. Anything you wanted to mention on games coming to subs or anything coming out this month that you had your eye on, James? I've got a couple.
Yeah, I was going to mention Road 96?
Road 96, yeah.
Yeah, that was in consideration for one of our games to play this month, and that's going to be on Xbox Game Pass in a few days' time. I think it's like the 5th or 6th of January. And that's kind of an adventure, isn't it? It's sounding quite fun. Lots of sort of narrative storytelling as you go on a sort of a long road trip along Road 96, meeting lots of different characters along the way and finding out lots of things and exploring life as some young characters going on a nice road trip. So that sounds fun. I'll probably give that a go during the month. I think you might have played a little bit of that in the past. So assuming you're still playing it, it must have been a fairly decent game. So I should give that one a go. Certainly. I was going to mention that I got Silent Hill 2 for Christmas as well as one of my gifts. So I'll definitely be playing that one in January. That was on an actual disc. So I shall pop that in once I uncellophane it and enjoy that loveliness. All the reviews have been really positive and it reached some of the Game of the Year recommendations as well. So it sounded really good. It's my type of game. Again, dark, mysterious, foggy adventure game with lots of baddies and lots of things to explore and discover. And I also got the PSVR PC adapter for Christmas. So I'll be trying lots of VR games over the next few months that were traditionally only on PC. So Steam, for example. So I'll be giving those a go over the next few months. So I can match you on some of the games that you're playing on your Meta Quest as well. So yeah, from the subscription services, that's the only game that really stood out for me so far. But they've not announced many, so who knows?
Exactly. Who knows? There's if you go into Reddit, you'll find all kinds of ridiculously good value options that people think are coming, and usually, obviously, they're just some rando behind a keyboard giving their wish fulfillment. So we'll see. I'd recommend Carrion, which is coming back to Game Pass at the start of January, where it's essentially a kind of 2D monster type game, but you are the monster. So a bit like the end of a certain game that we've both played, you're controlling the monster in this setting rather than the people trying to contain the monster, and it's just a really unusual but really fun game. Lots of slightly worrying cackles coming from my mouth when I played that game because you really get to cause all kind of havoc, breaking stuff, trying to escape from this lab that you've been contained in. It's really fun. Right, well, let's. I was going to put our Game of the Month choice at the end of the episode, but you mentioned Game of the Month, James, and you also mentioned VR. So shall we reveal January's Game of the Month, and then we'll come back to the final topic we were going to talk about.
Yes, I believe you have the description for it because I blagged my way through the Indiana Jones one. So why don't you describe it, Giles? It's on both platforms, so me and Giles can both play it on VR. It's on all the subscription services, so it should be nice and free to play. And it's kind of a looks a lot of fun, but also in terms of this time of year with New Year's resolutions, it's kind of a good way to get back in shape and keep fit whilst having some fun in virtual reality. So give a proper description, Giles, and the name.
So this month we're going for something a bit different, which is Synth Riders. I think it is Riders rather than Raiders. I've written both down in our description,
Riders,
so
yeah.
let's go with Riders. Excellent, thank you. Virtual reality rhythm game, and it involves players touching spheres, which are notes, and tracing lines, which is like going on rails. Avoiding obstacles that move towards them. If you've played Beat Saber, it's kind of similar sort of idea, I think, although I'm sure the developers would say it's completely different. And as James said, it's going to hopefully get us both moving a little bit in January, get some exercise work off a few of those mince pies. It looks really fun. It has recently had a Barbie DLC, which won't come with our subscriptions, and I'm sure might not tempt us to part with our cash. But just one of those sort of rhythm action games which have been entertaining me since sort of Guitar Heroes and those sorts of days. Throw in VR, throw in a bit of movement. What's not to like?
Yeah, I always enjoy a bit of rhythm action, so that'd be good. And it's our first VR game that we've had for Game of the Month, so that'd be some nice. And we're playing it on two different platforms, which would be quite interesting. So we can compare and contrast somehow during the
Indeed,
process.
PSVR 2 and Meta Quest 3 in my sight. So good stuff. Right. We don't have a main topic because we've got a special for you to listen to. Please go back and check that out. But it was the Game Awards this month, or in December. And so we thought that it would be remiss of us, is that the word?
Sure.
Not to at least recognise that not only did the Game Awards happen, but lots of announcements took place. Anything that took your fancy there, James?
Yeah, just want to make the point that we are quite cutting edge. So virtually every nomination for Game of the Year we've never played. So I think we can add lots of value to that one. But we would like to play them, so it's given us some nice ideas looking into it. So obviously the Game of the Year overall in these particular awards was Astro Bot. That sort of won across the piece, which is not wonderfully surprising because it does look like an awesome game, and one that me and Giles have both said we really want to play. Just can't quite bring ourselves to pay all the money for it yet. I could have put it on my Christmas list, really, but maybe next year. So hopefully it'll come on a subscription service at some stage, more likely on the PlayStation one. But we shall see. It looks like an awesome game. The reviews have been amazing. Lots of people said it's brought joy back into the world of gaming, which is always a nice thing to do. Being that most of the games you play are really dark and miserable and disturbing, having a nice game that makes you smile and have fun sounds quite odd. But I'm very keen on playing, so a very worthwhile winner on that one. There's also a few other ones that won in a lot of categories or were very highly placed. So Balatro has won. I've never heard of it. I haven't looked into it. I've got no interest in it whatsoever.
Yeah,
Something at all.
I think this is one where the description and certainly the screenshots and things don't grab you, are unlikely to grab you. Sort of based around, it's one of the card games, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
based around, oh God, what's it called? Poker, probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was listening to a podcast singing its praises just this morning. So I know that people who have played it, it's a kind of football manager circa 2000 time sink. So be careful, anyone who buys that game. It does sound like it's fantastic, but also going to absorb your life. So yeah, good shout out, James. Balatro is again one of those smaller. I think it might have been developed by one person again, like Animal Well, and has taken the awards by storm this year.
A couple of other good ones in there. Silent Hill 2 was in there, fortunately, in quite a few categories. So obviously, I've mentioned that already, that we're playing that soon. So that's nice. And also got me interested in a game called Metaphor Refantasio, which came quite high in a lot of the categories as well. That's sort of a Japanese role-playing game, sort of a fantasy adventure RPG. So that sounds really good. And I've actually looked through the reviews for that one. It scored really highly. Very popular with the public, obviously, and looks really interesting. No doubt, as with all RPGs, it's going to be really long and take up most of the month. So I'll give that a go at some stage. Might not be January because I've got Silent Hill 2 to work my way through, as well as Indiana Jones. But again, sounded really good. So that's the kind of game I quite fancy. And obviously Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was really popular in a lot of categories as well. And again, it's something I've been meaning to get around to, but probably never will for now. But there we go. That was some of the highlights. Anything else jumped out at you?
No, I think Metaphor does sound really good. I played a good chunk of Persona 5, which is the same developers. That was set in a high school, and this is more, like you said, sort of high fantasy, and with apparently some quite interesting stuff to say about modern modern themes, shall we say, in terms of sort of discrimination and stuff like that, but without banging you over the head with it. So
Yeah.
no, it all sounds good. Yeah, I think the awards are not really the focus of the Game Awards. It's mostly about sort of reveals and trailers and things, but it's really nice, isn't it, to be able to celebrate sort of games that brought, like you said, particularly with Astrobot, brought people joy, and hopefully a chance to sort of thank and reward people who've worked really hard this year, or over probably years and years, to get these games out. So any of the trailers or announcements that grabbed your eye before we wrap up?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you listen to our special episode on our games of the year, it's interesting to see how many of our 5 games each collide with the actual game of the year from all the magazines, and you'll find it's virtually none of them. There we go. But yeah, do listen to that one because it's fascinating how similar we are to the rest of the game community.
We'll be playing them in about 2030, won't we? Is basically the
Yeah.
theme of that episode. Yeah. Tune
So,
in.
like Giles said, there's lots of good trailers, lots of good things coming out. Don't know which ones you want to talk about particularly, but there's quite a few good ones in there. There's Mafia Old Country. That sounded quite interesting. It's set before the original Mafia games, and it's meant to be more of a linear narrative-driven type thing rather than it was in the original, so that sounds quite fun. Obviously, the previous ones were good. I've played some of them in the past, enjoyed them, so I'll be looking out for that one. I think that's coming sort of summertime in 2025, so a few months away yet, so anything can happen with that one. But it sounds like something I would definitely be looking forward to. Interesting game called Split Action, which
Fiction.
is...
Split Fiction.
Oh, Split Fiction, yeah. I can't read my own writing. Split Fiction. Makes much more sense. That's from the people who produced It Takes Two, which we've talked about in the past as being an awesome co-op couch game. It Takes Two, if you remember, was where there was a couple falling out and their child tried to help bring them back together using clay modelling, and that helped them in the end, and they became good friends in the end and got on with their lives. This one is more about people who are writing fiction, which is why fiction makes much more sense than action. And they sort of disappear into the stories they've been creating, and they've got to try and escape from things that they've written about in their own imagination. So again, it's 2 characters, very much couch co-op, so very much a good follow-up to It Takes Two. Me and Joshua loved It Takes Two playing together, so hopefully this one will be equally family-orientated rather than an 18-plus gore and swear fest. And hopefully that'll be something good that's coming out in, I think, about March time, so not too far to wait for that one. So hopefully it's really good. Do you want to mention a couple, G, before I crack on?
Yeah, March. It is March. Split Fiction. I put March 25, but presumably that's March 2025 rather than the 25th of March. No, I think those were good. I'd add Outer Worlds 2, which also has a release date of 2025. Really enjoyed the first Outer Worlds. It was a smaller RPG. It was about 15 hours or so, which was spot on for me. You mentioned metaphor. 100-hour playtime is the only thing that puts me off that game. 15 hours sounds great. So looking forward to that, and the trailer itself was really fun. Their announcement trailer was quite amusing, taking the mick out of all the sort of tropes that other announcement trailers do, and this was mocking themselves about how the fact that they tend to develop quite good games with the number 2 in them, and they don't tend to get to a third part. So hopefully they'll get to a third part on this one because it's fun. Game of Thrones King's Road was another that jumped out to me. I really enjoyed Game of Thrones, even the last series mostly, if you sort of squint a bit. And this seems to feature a lot of the TV cast, so it's got some money and some talent behind it. I think that was announced for 2025 as well, so not one of these announcements from years away, but something that we might be playing, although as you mentioned we won't be playing for a very long time, but nice to dream. And it looked a bit like a sort of Witcher type game set in the Game of Thrones universe, with the Game of Thrones uniform is probably wearing someone else's skin as a jacket. But yeah, set in that universe, and I nearly said it again. I should just stop talking. Set in that universe, but with the cast behind it. That sounds like a really interesting option for me. So it's really that, and then I think we probably both wanted to talk about, or one of us is going to talk about Intergalactic, surely. New game from Naughty Dog.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's quite a way off though, by the look of it. That's why I haven't mentioned it yet. It's probably not going to be 2025 potentially because it's meant to have been 4 years in the making so far. They started building it, making it in 2020. So obviously that's Naughty Dog, the company that made lots of games, including Crash Bandicoot and Uncharted and The Last of Us and The Last of Us 2 and The Last of Us Remastered and The Last of Us 2 Remastered and The Last of Us Remastered again. So they've not released a lot of new stuff for quite a few years now, since The Last of Us 2. So this is what they've been working on for the last 4 years. And everyone was kind of hoping it was going to be a Last of Us 3 or another Uncharted game, but it's a completely different IP this time, so it's set in space. There's a shaven-headed lady involved in it somehow who's going to be killing some things with a massive sword by the look of it. And there seems to be some monsters in it. But she's in a spaceship and she flies around a bit and she can't escape her own atmosphere for whatever reason. So she's trying to find a way of escaping to explore more parts of the world. So it looks like it's another female lead character, but very different than the previous games, whereby it's been very much based on Earth and more real life type stuff. This one seems to be in a whole completely different universe and dimension. So we should see how it translates, because Naughty Dog's always been the big benefit, has been the sort of emotional connection to the characters. So whether that will translate in a spaceship in another world, who knows? But yeah, very much looking forward to it, but a long way off.
yeah, it looks a lot more fun, doesn't it? Which was what they used to do, particularly before The Last of Us, and maybe Uncharted was sort of somewhere in the middle. But looks like that kind of Star Warsy, not just because it's space, or Indiana Jonesy sort of vibe about it. I think kind of fun, a bit of sort of skullduggery, lots of product placement, which has got the internet talking and didn't quite sit with me. Hopefully they've got licenses that allow them to keep selling the game well after it's released, because that's why Forza Horizon 4 got pulled, because the license has expired. So hopefully they don't do that with the game. But yeah, like you said, it's just a long way off. And I think you said a few episodes ago, and I heartily agree, it's much easier to get excited about something that's coming sooner, even if we're not going to be playing it for a while, than something that's released in 3 years, or in this case, no year's time. It was not dated from what I remember.
No,
So
definitely
who
not.
knows? Maybe it will be on PS8 or something.
There's two little more honourable mentions I wanted to mention that are coming out a little bit sooner, which was a game called Dispatch. So I think you were like a superhero with a big metal suit, but annoyingly, when you faced your arch nemesis, your suit got broke and you crashed back down to Earth, and then you had no suit. So, like Iron Man, you therefore had no more superpowers. Your superpowers are all linked into your suit. So therefore, you sort of were down on your luck and wondering what to do with your life. You got offered a job in a superhero dispatch call center. So people bring up needing superhero help, and you allocate resources on a computer and send superheroes out to help them. So it looks really interesting. It's got some big name-ish actors in it, and it looks really good. I thought the trailer was quite fun. So it looks like it's sort of a comic type style, but also exploring issues of having a really exciting career and then being knocked back down and sort of rebuilding yourself in a much less exciting role. So that looks quite fun. And obviously, last but not least, was a new Virtua Fighter type game from Sega. There's not been a proper Virtua Fighter game since 2006 with Virtua Fighter 6. And I think the new one ends up being called Virtua Fighter 5 Vivo or something bizarre, isn't it, rather than Virtua Fighter 7. So we shall see.
Indeed. Well, that was the show, everybody. And hey, hang on a second. You probably noticed that my voice sounds a bit different, and that's because in a first for our show, I actually managed to disappear off the end of the recording, and we don't quite have time to record a new ending together. So, by the powers of jiggery pokery, I'm going to try and seamlessly drop myself back into the conversation with James. Not at all creepy, but I just wanted to say thank you, everybody, for joining us for January's episode of the X and Games Monthly. And don't forget, we have a special episode that dropped about a week ago, going through our Games of the Year 2024. And we actually recorded these two back to back, as James will sort of fake react to. Well, no, his reaction is very genuine, but he's not reacting to this particular piece of audio. He will jump back in any second now. So thank you. I'm Giles Nicholson, Giles West on most things socials, including Xbox and PlayStation Live. And back over to James. James, I think I said something really funny, which is why you're about to just jump in with a good old laugh. But we did enjoy, didn't we, recording the two episodes, the special and this one, back to back.
Yeah, it was fun recording both. It was a bit like the Strictly show whereby you change clothing halfway through and pretend it was another day. So it kind of worked out in that way. But yeah, it's been good fun. Nice talking to you all throughout this year. I've only really got back into gaming this year because Cheryl sort of forced me to do this podcast, and then I started playing some games and had a good time. So before that, I was just playing silly things with Joshua, but now I'm excited and interested about stuff that's coming out and stuff we've not played, and looking forward to doing the same again next year. So I hope we see you all at the special one. I hope you see you again next month for this one. Again, as mentioned before, James Boy 1978 on the PlayStation Network. I've only got 2 friends on there, so if you want to be my friend, then please do feel the urge. Have a lovely time, everyone. Nice to see you all.
Cheers, everybody. Remember, first Friday of the month. See you next time.
Cheers, bye.